Let's switch that out for a bit. Very nice. Oh, oh heck yeah. Oh, this is great. This is really really great. For those of you that are watching this after the fact, I just got a new dresser. Which obviously, you can't see it because the computer's sitting on it. New shelves, another new dresser. This closet's been here forever, but I got a whole new setup. I'm really grateful to everyone in my family for helping it to become a reality. Now you can see all of my amiibos. There's one on the higher shelf because they couldn't all fit. My wonderful grandparents, which you've seen in older videos. There's my 100 line poster somewhere around there. Of course, you got a whole Catholic section. Um, Somewhere in there, with the lighting doesn't make it very obvious, is a drawing that my niece sent me. Don't worry, I blocked out all the personal information about her, but I wanted to show how grateful I am that she was willing to draw me a picture. Oh, if I'm reaching for the water already, I'm in big trouble. Yes, I know. These live streams are whenever I can make them. I One of these days I will start making them regular. I think I've decided. Seems like you guys like them enough where I think if I were to do that, that would be it would be the popular thing, but it wouldn't be the trendy thing, which is what I'm trying to go for all along. Trends equals bad, but making you guys happy equals good. As long as it doesn't reject the polism, that's what's important. And if I can still have a slice of pizza, that would be another great thing. Let's see. Ooh, I like that angle even better. Now you can see the pizza better. So while I'm waiting for people to come in, I don't remember who all heard what Catholic Kyle had to say on the last live stream I did, but he invited me to the Catholic Creator Conference at Franciscan University of Steubenville. And I got approved when I sent in my application. That does not mean I purchased the tickets yet. Still got to sort out all those logistics and which tickets I want and all that because there's like different options. But if all goes as planned and if I can sort out the logistics, I plan on going to the conference. And this will be the first conference that I have attended since 2020. Yeah, because I chaperoned a conference in 2020 that was put on, I think it was like a month before COVID hit, and never was able to quite recover since. I guess the Healing Room, the previous Mario Day, was kind of a conference, but that was more so just a bunch of people were there to pray over you. I wouldn't call it a conference by any means. Like it was only like that evening. No overnight stays, no food, none of that stuff, but I did get my left knee miraculously healed. Might need it miraculously healed again because this desk doesn't give a lot of leg room, but I just pulled it out from the wall and that's what worked. So for those of you watching this after the fact, I hope that you will send your prayers. And if you're an atheist, I hope that you will see it as an opportunity to have more Paulism and to possibly make it be more professional. Because part of the goal of this conference is to help us to be better YouTubers. So I would imagine, like, if you're watching my stuff that's maybe not explicitly Catholic, you might be like, "Oh, wow. I can see that Paul's video quality has really improved lately. I've been talking for 17 minutes." No, that's right. I went to go get the mail and okay. Yeah. Seems like clocks are moving faster nowadays. Could also be because daylight savings time is happening, which that's a whole thing. Thankfully, it didn't affect me too much. I found out the day it happened. No one had told me ahead of time. My alarm went off. And I said, wow, I'm not feeling as tired as I usually am this early in the morning. And then I looked down at my clock and I was like, wait, did I get up early? And then I looked at my phone, which, mind you, even primitive flip phones will give the correct time. I said, well, flip phones always tell the correct time, so it must be daylight savings time. And I proceeded to go and teach class because I'm the assistant teacher for fourth and fifth graders. And I think it went pretty well, all things considered. It's not like my class is cheering after the end of each lesson, but I think deep down inside they like it quite a lot. Oh, good. My shoulder's not in the way of banjo and kazooie. That's like the biggest one that I really don't want to hide, is I really want to make sure that assuming this camera is showing you this stuff well enough in focus, I really want you to know that the banjo and kazooie are like my the proudest thing that I own in that collection, besides all the religious stuff and of course my grandparents. I would be really honored if, again, if the camera was able to focus for you guys, if you were able to, like, especially look at my grandpa's face and be like, oh yeah, that's how Paul crinkles his eyes too. I don't think I'm gonna go bald like he did though, because I've been going to the dermatologist quite a lot lately, and dermatologists don't only help with skin, but they also help with hair and nails. And the last time I went to the dermatologist, which was let's see, it was back in April of 2025. The nurse said, "Wow, Paul, we would like to do a before and an after of when you first started coming to the dermatologist to after." And I said, yeah, so just curious, do you think I'm ever gonna lose all my hair? And she said, I don't think so. I think you're probably gonna be all good. So hippie forever. I'm sure it'll turn gray at some point. Like literally every human being in the history of ever who's reached a certain age gets gray hair. Um, Personally, I don't really care. I honestly think it'd be cool to have gray hair because, like, I'd be able to look more like Rumpelstiltskin. I've been told that I look quite a lot like him. I've seen a couple of side by side pictures, and I think his face is definitely quite a bit different than mine. But I think usually just when people see guys with long hair, they usually think of Rumpelstiltskin if they're fans of Once Upon a Time. And I haven't seen Once Upon a Time in quite a while. But I imagine if someone were ever to be like, yo, you want to just watch a random episode, I'd be like, heck yeah, heck yeah. And I got to meet two of the people that were in Once Upon a Time. I got to meet Jennifer Morrison and Giancarlo Esposito. Giancarlo's line was so packed, I barely had any time to talk to him, but Jennifer Morrison, her line was like almost non existent. And it was great to feel like I could have like a full on conversation with her. And I got a picture with her, and I got to go to her panel as well. And that was a lot of fun. And then we got like a professional photo opportunity that my friend Megan paid for. And since she was allowed to bring guests, she allowed me, my friend Teresa, and her mom to all like crash in the picture with her. And I think I showed that in my Comic Con video. Um, yeah, no, Comic Con was great. I don't know if I'm going to be able to go again, but I'm going to try. I'm definitely going to try because I'm hoping I can make Comic Con an annual tradition. So, another cool thing that I'm really happy about is that I looked on Nintendo today this morning, and it said, so the thing about Nintendo's advertising is they try to advertise their products based on universal time, but considering where I live, I get some of their products just a tiny little bit early. So that means that I'm actually going to be able to play the original Mario vs. Donkey Kong on Game Boy Advance Online sometime tonight. So I can actually play it before Mario Day, even though that was the big selling point is, hey, look, guys, look what we are putting out on Mario Day. Speaking of Mario Day, I said that already, didn't I? Yeah, that I was miraculously healed. I don't think I said it was on Mario Day. Yeah, I was miraculously healed on Mario Day and made a whole video about it if you guys want to go check that out. Um, I don't typically do too much fun stuff for Mario Day. I only just recently heard about it, actually. But I'm glad that Nintendo recognizes it, and I'm glad that we get something. I'm chuckling at my increasing creativity at how I get rid of political correctness because I have next to no filter when it comes to spreading the truth. And I think Jesus would want it that way. Obviously, we're all disciples. If we weren't disciples, we'd be in heaven. So it's a learning process. And who knows, maybe somewhere in the catechism there's a verse that says that I need to be politically correct. And if that's the case, then I will wholeheartedly apologize for all of these pinned messages and I'll just say, all right, I'll stop being politically correct. I just don't think that's actually the case based on what I've read. If anything, I feel like the catechism is reinforcing that idea because Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, not I am the way what people think is true and the life. He said he's the truth, the definitive, this is how it is. And if you don't like it, you might have some troubles in the afterlife. But I would like to think that the biggest problem with society, in my opinion, I could be wrong, and if I am, correct me. But in my opinion, the biggest problem with society is ignorance. I think that most people that would traditionally be perceived as evil or causing problems are genuinely ignorant. I think they just don't know any better. I think even the most sociopathic people in the world probably have something in them where they don't fully realize the extent of their actions. And so that's why I never flat out will say that something is evil. Like I know there was a time when I used to say that abortions were always a mortal sin, but then I started doing some research on what is a mortal sin, and I came to the realization that you can't make that broad assumption because, again, if people are ignorant, ignorance automatically makes a sin venial because part of the conditions for a mortal sin is it has to be full consent and full knowledge. So even the slightest bit of ignorance means you're not denied paradise just because you did this sin that's really terrible. Like, is abortion terrible? I mean, I'm trying to think about how the atheists are perceiving this because I do have some atheists on my channel, and I want to come across as yes, I'm Catholic. Yes, I'm standing up for my beliefs, but like I could come up with a more reasonable answer at the same time. And then if people need the religious answer, I'll have that as well. But my opinion is babies are precious and they're innocent. And I want to see more babies and I want to see more great people joining the world. And I want people to have an opportunity to get to meet amazing people. And I also think that, and again, I haven't researched this too much, so don't take my word for it. This is just my educated guess. From the little bit of research that I have done, abortion causes lasting side effects on the woman's body, both physically and emotionally. Now, I don't know how severe those conditions are, but from what I've heard, there are quite a lot of women that like will still have nightmares about their kids or like they'll try to have kids later and they won't be able to because like the abortion process made it hard, like it affected her reproductive organs in some way. And I just hope that going forward there can, like, if abortion is never like completely abolished, I hope that the compromise that we can reach is if a woman is going to get an abortion, and I should say the husband too, because it takes a man to have a baby in the first place. If abortion is ever to be abolished, or not abolished, but if it's going to be toned down, then what I think would be a good idea is if women were literally given every single side effect. They were shown what's going to happen, no lies, no cover up, no deceit, just sheer honesty. Unfortunately, I don't think realistically that's going to be possible because The clinics are going to want to make money. Generally speaking, honesty doesn't sell. That's why you go in these commercials and they never really talk about side effects. If they did, you can probably imagine Nintendo in their marketing for putting the Virtual Boy on Switch Online would say something along the lines of, well, in the 90s, this caused people to get migraines and headaches. So just saying, you're paying $100 for a replica that's going to replicate that painful experience for people in the 90s. They don't do that. That's not going to get their product sold. And I feel like that's the majority of how evil spreads in the first place. That's how anything spreads, honestly, is misinformation. And the older I get, the more I'm starting to realize that the people that I disagree with don't have malicious intents, really. It's the people that are trying to support them that I feel like I have more issues with. Like, I know it comes across as though I hate trans people, but I have a trans subscriber. And as far as I can tell, we get along really, really well. And honestly, I would love to have a trans person be like a guest star on my channel. I'd love to have an opportunity to learn like how these people think, how they feel. I genuinely do want to know what it feels like to have gender dysphoria because now I've never been trans. I know people think that I am just because of my voice, but nope, it's all natural. But I want to know the bodily sensations and the mindset and all the sorrow they've been through so that I can sympathize and then I can be kind to these people. I don't think it'll mean that I'll change my values unless, again, unless I'm missing something in the catechism. That's really the biggest thing about me is I don't like to deal with absolutes. That there's a line in Revenge of the Sith that really sticks out to me, and that's only a Sith deals in absolutes. And so I've been thinking about what that means lately. And I realized that on like even among Catholic circles, the people that use a lot of extreme statements, sometimes they annoy me even more than atheists do, if I'm being honest. Like, you get these Catholic extremists that say, like, if you're gay, you're going to burn in the fires of hell. You need to rush to confession. I'm like, no, they don't. You can't be held accountable for feelings. Like, the thing about emotions is that they are irrational by nature. And what I mean by that isn't that you're being stupid by having emotions, but that you can't control it. They're just going to happen. Like, if I start getting sad, there was nothing I could do to prevent it. Sure, could I have been in a situation that wouldn't make me sad? Yes, but you can very rarely predict when you're going to be in that situation. In the same way, people who have gender dysphoria and what is gayness called? I don't want to say gayness because that's like that might be offensive, but like there we go, homosexuality. If you can't control that, that's no reason to say someone is going to hell. Again, remember, the definition of a mortal sin is full knowledge, full consent, and a serious sin. I'm pretty sure 90% of gay people did not consent to be gay people. So therefore, you can't say gay people are going to hell by default. You have to be like the wickedest of people to be thrown in hell. You have to be the type of person that maliciously and viciously wants to hurt people and wants to cause problems and genuinely knows who God is and what evil is and chooses to do it anyway. And that's why I think there probably aren't actually that many people in hell, if there are any people in hell. I don't think there's anything in the Bible that explicitly, well, I guess there is the parable of, well, the story of Lazarus and the rich man. One could interpret that, yes, that person was in hell. So we don't know how many people are in hell, but I'm pretty sure it's a relatively low number. Because if I'm any indication, then I think the vast majority of people are just uninformed. They don't know what evil is, and they don't know people's feelings because people are so busy thinking about themselves that I don't think they think about other people's problems as much as they say that they do. Even empaths. I know a lot of empathetic friends. And my empathetic friends will still misread me from time to time. They will still occasionally say hurtful things. And I'll think to myself, you guys are empaths. You're supposed to be able to pick up on people's feelings. You did not pick up on my feelings there. If anything, you hurt my feelings. And I feel like if even empaths can slip up, what's to say that the vast majority of people also aren't slipping up when it comes to morality? Maybe there are genuinely people out there that think that, like, say they're doing a school shooting, they think that that's justified in some way. Maybe they have like trauma and they think, okay, if I do this shooting, then that'll be like this righteous act. So they think they're being righteous, but they're not. And I don't think there's maliciousness here. And that's why I don't think the vast majority of people that do like shootings and mass killings, I don't think most of those people are going to go to hell. Again, I'm not God. I can't say I can speak on his authority, but I'm pretty sure ignorance is a big part of most of those. And so anyone that judges those kinds of people, I would say that they're probably even worse than the shooters, in my opinion, because judgers have an assumption that they know more than everyone else. And if there's one thing that I've learned is that people's brains are so complicated that if you ever say I know everything about a person, pretty sure you're either lying or misinformed. Because I would never say that even among my best friends, I don't think any of them knows 100% everything about me. I'm pretty sure I am such an enigma. I don't even think I know everything about me. Like to this day, I'm still discovering stuff about myself. Like, um, I might notice something on my body that I didn't notice before, or like sometimes I'll talk to nurses and the female nurses will be telling me stuff about the male body, and I'll be like, oh, wow, I didn't even know that about my own body. So I think if nurses can say that on something on a biological level, I don't think anyone can say on an emotional or mental level, I have it all figured out. I have figured out that you're either a good person or an evil person. Life is more nuanced than that. And I just don't think the vast majority of people even know what nuance is. If everyone knew what nuance was, I'm not going to say the popular joke. You all know what I was going to say, but I genuinely think that stuff like social media and popular things thrive off of the lack of nuance, and that's what gets views. And I personally do not want to live like that. I want to make sure that every single thing that I say has some kind of, okay, let's consider a bunch of different variables here. And that's why I almost never make absolute statements, or at least I try not to. I used to when I was a kid, and I regret it so much. I regret all the times that I ever tried to. I used to be such a modesty stickler that I would, like, if a girl had her shirt down this much, I would say that she was showing too much skin. And I've started to realize that that's just a Sith way of thinking. And I really need to be patient and I need to look at each scenario on an individual basis because I am the definition of systematic. I am that type of person that I used to be this scenario applies to every single scenario. And I'm starting to realize, especially since I have a lot of friends who aren't systematic, that you really have to look at literally everything as a special case. Like this phone, for example, you will probably perceive this phone completely differently than I do. I can't just make a blanket statement about this phone because my perception is based on my experiences and what's in my brain, not based on what's in your brain. Now, there are obviously absolute truths out there, but what I'm getting at is what was I getting at? Like, I can't just look at one person or one race or one gender and just assume that there's an absolute there. Like, for example, I can't look at any biological woman and automatically assume that there's going to be something in her brain that is there with every other brain. There's always going to be something that is different and unique. And that's what makes us as humans beautiful, is that we have this opportunity to change the world with the perspectives that only we have. And that's a mind-blowing thing now that I think about it. Like, it kind of makes death even more sad, because I used to be of the mindset that death is just the gateway into heaven. But now I'm starting to think that's why Jesus wept, because the world was deprived of Lazarus's perspectives when he was in the tomb. For all the 4 days or the 3 days, however long he was in the tomb, however long Lazarus was in the tomb, the world wasn't able to hear how he was seeing the world. And I think Jesus realized that. And I think that's why he wants us to live as long as possible. He wants us to use the gifts that only we have to make a huge difference in the world. Because if God didn't want us to do that, why would he even make us exist in the first place? I know that there's a lot of intuitive and abstract people out there that'll say things like, what's the meaning of life and why are we even here? I've never struggled with that question personally. I feel like I feel like people who ask that question, and I could be wrong, I very much could be wrong, but I personally feel like people that ask the question, why are we here? Why are we doing this? They're thinking too much about their own perspectives when they say that. They have to realize, I don't know how I'm going to come across to other people. I especially know that because I have a big mouth. I tend to just blurt out whatever's on my mind. But you never know what kind of an impact you're making on people until after the fact. Boy, do I know that firsthand, because so many people that I've met on these mission trips and these conferences that I've been on will say things like, "Oh my gosh, Paul, that thing that you said earlier really brought me closer to Christ." And I'll be thinking to myself, I don't even remember what I just said. Or I'd be like, "Oh, that little thing? Oh, that was just me scratching my nose." Like, obviously it wasn't literally scratching my nose, but like I will think that I'll have done something insignificant and that'll literally change someone's life. Same thing with when I met Monica and Reba, which there should be a picture of her somewhere around there. Um I don't think they realized how much of a difference they were making in my life until after I told them, "Thank you so much for sitting by me. I was in a really bad place back then. And if it weren't for you guys, I honestly don't even think I'd be alive. Or at least if I did, I'd be a real wreck." And so that's why I think God made us as communal beings. Because without this sense of community and fellowship, we are going to wonder what's the point of existence. We're going to say, why am I here? Because you haven't heard other people's perspectives. That's why. I'm pretty sure I'd be asking that same question if I didn't have so many friends and so many people that say that I've brought them closer to Jesus, or even if they're atheists that just say like, "Hey, Paul, I really appreciate you being in my life." And I think that's why even priests, like, yes, they take vows of celibacy, but at the same time, they're in a community. Like, they'll eat, like, if they're like monks, for example, monks can also be priests. They'll have a community of brothers that they're with. And diocesan priests, like if they're, say, pastors, because every pastor is a priest, but not every priest is a pastor in the Catholic Church. And if there's one thing I have learned from priests is that they very much are not anti-women. They are interacting with women constantly. They have to deal with women. I shouldn't say deal with, that sounds sexist. They have to hear the confessions of women in the confessionals. They have to counsel married people. They have to, I don't know, maybe a woman might want to talk with a spiritual matter with them over dinner. They might be denying themselves matrimony, but they're not completely abandoning the opposite sex just because they're taking a vow of celibacy. But that goes for just about everyone. Is we are meant to be communal beings, and even if we're the most introverted person in the world, we all want to be something to someone else. I genuinely feel like the most miserable people in the universe are the people that are hermits. I could be wrong, but I know that generally speaking, I've never met someone who is like isolated from people, who is this really happy, cheerful, go lucky person. Generally speaking, when I meet cheerful people, these people usually say something outside of themselves is what made them cheerful. They might not want to admit that a human was involved, but deep down inside, they know that it's true. For example, someone could say, "Hey, I just downloaded this super cool new video game and I'm just having an absolute blast. I'm not playing it online. I'm not playing it with any friends. I haven't told any friends that I played the video game." There were people involved in making that video game. Even if you didn't interact with them, your joy was derived from the actions of someone else. And so I feel like you just trying to live life alone means that you are stuck in your own brain's limitations, because I'm I'm pretty sure every single person in the world has some kind of deficiency, even if they don't technically have a medical diagnosis of like autism or neurological deficiencies or anything like that. I don't think any person is of such a personality that that person can fix everything on their own. Even the smartest people in the world have their deficiencies. It's why you get the common stereotype that geniuses are all a bunch of social dorks, because they just a lot of geniuses seem to just not grasp basic social skills, which is why we have, according to David Kiersey, we have people that have diplomatic intelligence. But if we had everyone being diplomatic, we wouldn't know how to prepare for the future. So we have all these different types of people so that hopefully, if we lean into the social aspect of humanity, we can make a difference by using each of our individual strengths to contribute to as much people being happy as possible. And unfortunately, I think because so many people are either ignorant or scared, it's just not. I don't think we'll ever reach a point where there just won't ever be poor people and there won't ever be war. I'm pretty sure that's inevitable. I'm pretty sure there was a verse in the Bible somewhere that said something like, "You'll always have the poor with you, but you won't always have me." Now, whether Jesus was speaking literally or not, I don't know. But at the very least, I think it's I think it's good that there are enough people thinking outside of themselves that they're willing to make a difference to those that have less. And because more people have come along and generations have gone by with more life experience that they can pass on, I don't know. For all I know, maybe the poor people are feeling better than they ever have. And in my opinion, as someone who is kind of in between on the money spectrum, I would say that some of the best moments of my life have come from my friends stepping in and saying stuff like, "Hey, Paul, I'm going to treat you to this cheeseburger." Or, "Hey, Paul, I would love to." What's this about a Nintendo Direct? I didn't hear about a Nintendo Direct. Spill the beans, man. Not literally. That's a figure of speech. Oh, for the oh, no, no, I'm not. Just because I don't really like watching directs for movies. I don't really like watching trailers for movies either. So I still haven't watched any of the Mario movie trailers besides the very first one that they showed was just the panning shot of like Mario sleeping against the tree. So I'm hoping to go into this knowing pretty much nothing. But how are you doing, Matthew? Any big news lately? One thing I am going to be doing is I'm going to be playing Mario versus Donkey Kong when that comes out, which is coming out in just a few hours, according to my time zone. Uh, as you guys know, I have played the remake, but I've never played the original. And if I have, it was like for maybe like 5 minutes at a demo kiosk. For some reason, I thought the game was on the GameCube when I saw the remake announced. So it probably was one of those like Game Boy Advance to GameCube link cables or like a Game Boy player, something along those lines. I used to have a Game Boy player actually. I kind of regret giving it away, but that is how I played quite a lot of Game Boy Advance games. Like I played the old Fire Emblems on GameCube Game Boy Player, and I liked it quite a lot. I really liked the background that had like purple stars all over the place. Um, there aren't a whole lot of Game Boy Advance games that I like, but you know, if only for Fire Emblem, I should have kept it for that. But at least now we have Switch Online, and I do technically still have both Fire Emblem games on the Wii U because you know with the Wii U you buy them from the Virtual Console, you have them forever as long as your Wii U is still working. So if Switch Online ever gets shut down, I have options to preserve those old Fire Emblem games in my opinion, the basically definitive versions of them. Like I would say the only benefit to having it on Switch Online is rewinds, but it's close enough if you have save states on the Wii U. But now that more people are watching, I want to restate what I said at the beginning of the video because I don't know how many people watch these. Is that a crucifix? Yes, it is. This entire shelf right here is all my religious stuff. There's my Tears of the Kingdom amiibo, 100-line poster, um, the amiibos that I still have, my grandparents, lots of good stuff in my room ever since it got rearranged. But anyway, I plan on going to the Catholic Creator Conference. I actually just got off the phone with one of the organizers of the conference. At least I think that's what he is. He's been to these live streams, so if he comes to this one, he can correct me if I'm wrong. So yeah, we were just talking about like what I should expect, like what's the difference between a standard attendee and a VIP. And he was really, really easy to talk to. It was a really great conversation. And so I'll definitely keep you posted once I get like an official answer. But at the moment, I am very, 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 very much in talks about how to logistically arrange all of that. And so I'm really hoping that I don't know, who knows, maybe some of you will be there. He did say on the phone that he didn't want it to be too much of like a fan meetup. He wanted it to be more of an opportunity for like all of us to get to know each other and like work together, maybe like form new connections. And um he said you'd be surprised how many people you didn't know were Catholic that are probably going to be there. Now, I've been to Steubenville before, as you all know, and I didn't have the greatest time when I went there last time. So I'm thinking that this is God's way of like coming around, saying you had a miserable time at Steubenville when you were a teenager, but now you're going to have a phenomenal time, and it's going to be this big, giant, life changing event. So I hope that if those of you watching are Christian, I hope you'll pray for me. And I hope that if you're not Christian, I hope that you'll, well, pray for me anyway. Just pretend that God exists. Just say, okay, I don't believe in God, but I'm going to pray for Paul anyway, hope for the best. And then it happens. And then I'm so much happier. I mean, what can you lose? Look at it logically. Let's say hypothetically that you are an atheist and you don't believe in God. And let's say hypothetically that you're right. Okay. If I were to say, pray for me, you're like, well, I don't believe in God. That's a bunch of baloney. Well, do it anyway. What can it hurt? What is the worst that can happen to you if you are an atheist? You just say a bunch of stuff to thin air. But what if it does happen? That's the thing. How can you guarantee that your prayers don't work? There have been so many instances in my life where my prayers have made a huge difference. Like, for example, this voice that I have right now. I actually, when I was about to go through puberty, I was so scared of having a deep voice that I prayed to God so, so hard. I was like, please do not make me talk like all the other guys. And I never went through that voice cracking phenomenon that most teenage boys do. Sure, my voice is deeper than it used to be, but it, I get mistaken for a girl all the time as a result. And it cracks me up every single time because I'm pretty sure I have a pretty masculine physique, all things considered. And anyone who's seen me at the swimming pool shouldn't have any doubt what my gender is. But yeah, so I honestly don't think that would have happened if I hadn't prayed as hard as I did. I've had instances where people prayed over me and miraculous things have happened. Like I said, exactly 1 year and 1 day ago, I was at this place called the Healing Room, and I had 3 people. Their names were Allie, Francesca, and Mike. They prayed over my left knee, and give about 10 minutes, my left knee was fine. I had I've been miraculously healed at Eucharistic adoration. I've had people say that they would pray over me, and I would say, like, oh, yeah, right, like that's going to happen. And then the very thing that they wanted me to do, I ended up doing because I could have sworn I heard a voice behind me that said, go do that. And usually when I hear those voices, when I listen to them, it ends up changing my entire life. I could have easily just said I was going crazy on that conference that got me out of depression, but I said, all right, I'm going to trust that voice and I'm going to hope for the best. And those girls proceeded to get me out of depression. Speaking of which, this month marks exactly, I don't remember the exact date, but this month's exactly 10 years since I got out of depression. And boy, does it feel good to be constantly happy. Now, by constantly, I don't mean that I'm always happy. Obviously, I have moments where, I get sad. Like, who doesn't? By the way, guys, I'll be right back. I'm just going to turn on the fan because it's getting a bit hot in here. There we go. All right. But what it means to be out of depression is that you tend to see everything from an optimistic perspective, even if you're sad. So, like, let's say, I don't know, say my best friend hasn't talked to me in years. The depressed part of me would probably have said something like, oh, well, I must be the super terrible person that turned away my friend. And so maybe the rest of my friends will desert me. And maybe I am a worthless human being. And maybe no one would care if I died. That's how I used to think. But now, only that first sentence really applies. Now I would say something like, oh, I hope I didn't scare off that person, but at least I have these other people that understand how I talk. And at least I've had other people that have apologized for their misgivings. And at least I have a loving family. And at least I have, so many blessings in my life that I'm thankful for. Like, I'm thankful for this cup and the amazing water. I'm thankful that I still have a flip phone because goodness knows I'd be so miserable if I had to operate on a touch phone. I'm grateful for this comb because my hair has a personality of its own most days. I'm grateful for just about everything in this room. I could say I'm grateful for. And I feel like I don't really want to be in anyone else's life. Not saying you guys don't have a good life, but I like the life that I'm personally in. And I hope that you all can get to that point as well, where you're like, obviously, your life's not going to be perfect. As long as you're on this earth, you're going to be suffering in some form. But you get a perspective on the suffering that changes everything. That's the difference between being out of depression and being in it, is you say, okay, maybe there is a point to all this suffering. Maybe there could be people years from now who are really inspired by how you handle your pain. And that will make people handle their pain better in the future. I'll give you an example. There's this woman at the gym that I go to. I won't say her name just in case she wants to preserve her identity, but she is about to be 85 years old. And she has been through quite a lot of traumatic events that prevented her from going to the gym for a while. Some of them were before I moved to this town, so it could be hearsay a little bit, so bear with me. But I think at one point she had cancer, so she had to stop coming for a while. But then as soon as she got over it, she came back. Then another time, I think the cancer came back and she had to leave again, and then she came back again. And then she said, "Oh, now I have to have an MRI because they're thinking the cancer might be returned." So then she left again. So as far as I'm aware, there have been at least 3 different times that she's had to leave the gym for an extended amount of time. And she would come back and she would say, "Praise the Lord, I'm back to the gym." And people at the gym are constantly talking about how she's such an inspiration, especially for the older people, because she's like she's hunched over and she has a walking stick and she doesn't move very fast, but yet she's so joyful. And I think it inspires them to want to say, this woman is such a trooper. She's not letting all of these problems get her down. And her positivity is making a difference. So, yes, you could be suffering, but you could help people with their suffering by how you handle yours. So then we're all helping each other as a result. I don't remember if there was ever a time when I've helped give people perspectives like on my suffering. But I do know that a lot of people have said to me that I seem to be pretty good at like hearing people out. And like even if I don't agree with their perspectives, they can usually tell that I'm trying to like see where they're coming from. I'm pretty sure right now, I could be wrong, but I'm using this much intuition to figure it out. I'm pretty sure one of my friends watching right now is a trans ally. And I feel like we've come to kind of an understanding. Like, sure, maybe I don't understand everything about their movement, but I think she realizes that I'm trying my best to like have cognitive empathy. Now, the difference between cognitive empathy and actual empathy is cognitive empathy means maybe you can't actually feel it, but you're trying your best to understand it on a conceptual level. And I hope that she realizes that I really do feel for these people. Like, I want the best for them, honestly. And as someone who has had troubles with, accepting my body as it is and having, I wouldn't say I ever had dysphoria per se, but I was really jealous of girls for a long time. Like, I thought they had it so easy with their bodies. And I think it came across as dysphoria to a couple of people. And I feel like because I have that experience, I feel like if a trans person were ever to come up to me and tell me how they're feeling with gender dysphoria, I would probably give them a big hug and just say, I know what it feels like to not feel comfortable in your body. And I want to be there with you in your pain. That's what I'm hoping for. Will it ever actually happen? I don't know. But that's what I'm hoping for. I am hoping that there comes a day when there comes like this super popular social media platform that's, kind of like Twitter Or maybe it could be like YouTube, but like something that gets that level of personality that emphasizes people coming together as opposed to people trying to tear apart each other's worldviews. Like, I hope, maybe not necessarily a meme, but like, I hope there's something that like someone could post an opinion or their feelings on something, and people will suddenly say, oh, I'm going to jump and be sympathetic to this person. I dropped from 4 people to 1 in like a second. Was that just because of my Avast, or did the stream go? Like, I'm genuinely curious how that happened. Then again, like I keep telling you guys, you know what to expect with my username and with the pinned message. So, I don't know. But I think like platforms like Twitter get a bad reputation because people don't know how to people don't know how to have discussions anymore, it seems like. People don't know how to say, okay, maybe I don't agree with your viewpoint, but maybe we can find common ground. And maybe we can, maybe not 100% agree with each other, but we can. Lost my train of thought. Sorry about that. We can learn from each other's perspectives. To give an example, I think I've made it no secret that my favorite YouTuber at present is Ty the One Up Guy. And the funny thing about him is that he and I are very different when it comes to the types of video games that we like. But yet, every time I hear him say an unpopular opinion, I really want to hear him out on it. Because sometimes he gets me to think, okay, you know what? Maybe my perspective had some errors in it. In fact, he recently made a review of a game called Demon Tides. And I had never even considered that that kind of game would be for me. But the way he presented it made it seem so cool. And there have been other times where, like, yes, maybe I wouldn't like what he likes, but I like the way he talks about it. And I feel like that level of authenticity makes him easier to talk to. So, sure, maybe he's not going to ever be able to convince me to like Pikmin, but maybe if he likes Pikmin, then it can open the possibility of me liking something that's like Pikmin. Or I could say, "Hey, this new game's coming out. I know you like Pikmin, so maybe you'll like this game." That's what I'm hoping for people with differing viewpoints, is that they can, like I said, maybe they won't come to a full agreement, but they can learn some kind of perspectives from each other. I remember I was talking to an atheist, and she said, I would be a fool if I said that Jesus didn't have any great words of wisdom, because ultimately I believe in compassion. And Jesus did talk a lot about loving people. And so you see how, like, even though she didn't believe in Jesus' divinity, she still believed in Jesus' words. And that's what I think we could all do. Like, we could all learn from people with differing viewpoints. We could all, like, learn from just about everyone, really. Like, the only people that I could see me having trouble learning from are, like I said earlier in the live stream before any of you guys showed up, extremists. People that use absolute terminology, like like that person in my Virtual Boy video that said Nintendo never ever clarified that Labo was incompatible with Virtual Boy. I did 2 seconds of research and disproved that. That's why I don't like absolute statements, because people who are good at research can probably disprove it really easily. So using words like never and always, typically I don't try to use that in my vocabulary. Because I've learned over the years that even when it comes to video games that I love, there are usually exceptions. Like, for example, I don't think I've ever once uttered the sentence, I will always be excited about a Fire Emblem game. Because when Fire Emblem Shadows was announced, I thought it looked abysmal. And from what from what I can tell, I was not alone in that thought process. From what I can tell, Fire Emblem Shadows was among the top 10 lowest rated games of 2025 on Metacritic. And so, since Fire Emblem Shadows has come out, it's gotten me to realize that Fire Emblem is not an infallible franchise. And so if I were to have the mindset of, well, I have loved just about every Fire Emblem game in the past, so I will always pre-order them, that's going to get me into trouble. In the same way that if I say I will never ever play a Pokemon game, that would have prevented me from playing Detective Pikachu Returns or New Pokemon Snap. Genuinely good experiences. Not good enough to make my lists, but I like piecing together the truths in Detective Pikachu Returns. I like snapping pictures, even if it got boring after you went through a level once. And Pokemon Puzzle League was pretty good, even if you could have taken out the Pokemon and no one would tell the difference. um, if I said something like, I will never ever like shooter games, then I would never play Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. There's a shooter mini game in there, but you can choose to skip it. Maybe there will come a game that has like a slight shooter section. And maybe I can push through it long enough to see the rest of the game. That happened with Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, actually. There was a scene where I was asked to play this like World of Warcraft type mini game. Thankfully, I won both times I played it, both for the review and for my own personal time trying to play through the game. And playing that mini game has really helped me to appreciate people that have differing viewpoints from me. Because if I were to talk in that kind of absolute type of statements, I probably would have said something like, oh, I hate real time strategy games. I never want to deal with them. But then it would have prevented me from getting to the rest of Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. Yes, I wish that section wasn't mandatory, but allowing myself to push through that tiny little section allowed me to enjoy the rest of the game. So who knows how that could work on real people? I just, my experiences have taught me that every single person on this earth has something to offer. And that's what I think is going to be the best part of heaven, in my opinion. Is, well, obviously, the best part of heaven is going to be being with God. But I think hearing people's experiences of how they came closer to God will bring me closer to God as a result. And I think hearing so much collected experience from all of the saints from throughout the ages will make heaven a way more enjoyable place, because then their perspectives on like how they encountered God like thousands of years ago could make me like God more by the time I get to heaven. And same thing with me. Maybe my experiences will shape generations that died before me. I think at the end of the day, human beings value their collective experiences. And that's why you get like pretty much everyone driving in cars instead of wagons, is because the collective experience of wagons has proven to be not as good as cars. And as a result, the collective humanity has changed how they see things. They don't say, oh, wagons are state of the art, cutting edge things. Now everything has changed. But conversely, if a time machine were to genuinely exist and you went to someone in the 1800s and said, "Guess what? I've come from the future and there's a thing called a car. I bet you'd love it." That would create such an amazing ripple effect. And I feel like that's what heaven ultimately is it's a collection of ripple effects. Like, who knows? Maybe the saints are looking down right now and saying, "Dang, it's so great that you 21st century people had pizza. And it's so great that God gave people the ability to." I mean, I'm not exactly subtle about my favorite food. And maybe those people, upon seeing those experiences, would petition to God saying, "Hey, you know what? I know you're like perfect and everything, but do you think maybe you could have pizza for dinner?" Because, the Bible's always talking about the table being overflowing with goodness. Maybe, just maybe, after pizza was invented, God said, "All right, that person was made in my image and likeness after all. So I'll go ahead and make pizza for you guys. Maybe there are video games up in heaven. Maybe after Shigeru Miyamoto made Donkey Kong, the saints said, that's not too bad. Maybe we could have something like that up here." And God said, "All right, sounds good to me." What's just like, yes, God is infinite, but we also know that he values our input. If God didn't value our input, he wouldn't have let Abraham question him. He wouldn't have said, like, "Well, hey, you know what? Um, maybe you shouldn't go ahead with the whole bombing of Sodom and Gomorrah thing." So I think maybe, like, obviously, God could have had pizza up in heaven all along, but maybe he chose to wait. Hey, girl, glad you can make it in. Whoo, boy, have I been having some profound thoughts today, and it's a real shame you missed a lot of them. Either that or you were just quiet this whole time. But I hope that you're able to rewatch this stream because I don't, well, if you're used to political incorrectness, I think if you can put up with that, then I think I got some really great perspectives. Just got on. y- Here's the thing. I've started to realize that 5 o'clock EST is probably the time when most of you are gonna show up. The problem is that I have to know that I have that availability. And so I figured, would I have enough time to do a live stream if I started at 5? But at least you got on sooner rather than later. I still have this much water left. Oh, I had a lot of thoughts about the Bible and Catholicism. But yeah, I do hope you'll rewatch this. And again, if you'll forgive my political correctness, I think you'll really like a lot of that. But enough about me. I've been blabbing for a whole hour. How about you, hey girl? Any good news on your end or any questions? How's your well being? Anything like that you want to share? Again, I talked just to whoever was listening for like an hour and I got like dead silence. So I would love to hear everyone else's thoughts now. Oh, while I'm waiting for you to type that out, I hope you really like how my room was a bit rearranged. Which is your favorite amiibo of all of these, by the way? Because I used to have 138 amiibo, I believe, and then it went down to just one after a while. And that one amiibo that survived was Banjo and Kazooie. Much anxiety, however. Hey, you know what? I have a lot of anxiety myself. But usually what helps me get over anxiety is people. Like talking to people, asking them, "What do you think?" And then they say, "Paul, you're being stupid." And then I say, "Yeah, you're right." And that usually gets me out of it almost every single time. So earlier in the stream, you missed the bit where I was saying that literally everyone, I believe, is made for community. And so some people make you even more anxious. Sorry, you're right. I should have clarified. Friends. Friends usually are the ones that make me not anxious. Because, oh, goodness knows, if I were to talk to just any old person, that would make me very anxious. But usually my friends have really good perspectives. And not only do they get rid of my anxiety, but they actually make me happier than I was before the anxiety. Like, there have been times, like, I'll give you an example. There was a friend of mine who, um, we didn't get along very well for quite a long time. And I always blamed myself. And the reason why I blamed myself was that the language she used was, leave me alone. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Naturally, one would assume that that means you did something wrong. But then, years later, the friend reached out to me and said, hey, I was wondering if we could reconnect, and I'm sorry for the way I treated you. So all of a sudden, I said, I was under this false pretense for all these years that I was this bad person and I was scaring people away. Now that I've heard that, I am a lot more easygoing with myself. How long did it take for them to reach out? Um, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that because this person has asked that I keep her anonymous. It was a pretty long time, like quite a few years. Yes, she did explain why she behaved that way. And I put it this way, I've completely rethought our interactions. I've completely rethought myself as a person. And I've completely rethought how other people see me as a result of that apology. And whenever I'm around, say, not YouTubers, I'll give a lot more details. And every single time someone has said, wow, that is such a powerful story. And I feel like ever since that has happened, like, I think I told you I used to be really sexist. I used to hate women with a passion. And then two girls on my first mission trip got me out of it. But then this girl, different girl, um, she got me to really be nervous around being around INFJs. And so after she apologized, it got me to completely rethink everything I thought I knew about INFJs. So now I'm starting to realize maybe all of these things that I said were annoying me about them were actually just her problems. Like maybe it wasn't actually INFJs, it was actually just her. And since we have come back together, so to speak, she's improved quite a lot. Yes, it does depend on the individual. But that's the thing. And again, I said this earlier, so I'll repeat myself a little bit. I am the definition of systematic. I used to be the type of person that I would take every single thing and I'd say, okay, this is always the case or this is never the case. And I did a whole spiel before you showed up about like only Siths deal in absolutes. So don't say the words never and always as much as you can help it. So I've started to learn that literally everything in life is individualistic. Obviously, there are definitive truths out there, but like the example I used was I love Fire Emblem, but that doesn't mean I love every Fire Emblem. And when Fire Emblem Shadows came out, that was it looked abysmal. And from what I heard from like the reviews and stuff, um, it didn't do too great with the critics either. So that got me to realize I used to say to people I was a diehard Fire Emblem fan, but now I only say I'm a Fire Emblem fan. You used to think all lawyers are bad people. Yeah, I'm kind of feeling that way about court officials right now. Again, not allowed to talk too much about it, but let's just say the system has been giving my family a bit of trouble right now. And so yeah, I very much understand. Well, I don't know your entire story, but I understand that thought that like someone of a certain something, be it gender or race or height or personality type, does something wrong, you think everyone does something wrong. But as I've gotten older, I realize that that's not a good way to think about things. I used to think that I genuinely used to think that being male was a punishment from God, and that like I had been alive in heaven before God put me on earth, and the people that were born female were the ones that passed the test, and the people that were born male um, failed. Yeah, I used to think being a guy was a punishment too, so I get it. I very much get it on the opposite level that is. But I have since learned that because I really like to study anatomy quite a lot, and I won't get too into it here in case people are squeamish, but I have since learned that men and women actually have way more similarities than you would think. Not identical things, but similarities. I'll give you an example. There was one time that I went through Lyme disease, and during the process of getting over Lyme disease, you have to go through another type of process known as herxing. And while I was herxing, some of the things that would happen to me would I would sometimes like suddenly completely lose all of my energy on the spot, and I just fall to the floor like a puppet with strings cut. I would have this terrible stomach ache, and um I don't know how it's spelled, but it was very painful. The worst pain I've ever felt in my life besides when I had wart removals. And so one time I was talking to a pregnant woman. I won't get into the scenarios, but it wasn't anything like illegal or creepy. And when I told her about my experience with herxing, she said, "Oh my goodness, that sounds almost identical to what a woman goes through on her period." So a pregnant woman, like that made me feel so honored because I've always wanted to like understand how other people feel, and I've always wanted to like get into their perspectives. And so when that pregnant woman said that to me, I said this is one step closer to me being empathetic to women's struggles. And ever since that day, I do get these sympathetic stomach pangs whenever I hear women talking about either being pregnant or being on their period. And then, like, some women have even, like, some of the more empathetic women I've met have even gone so far as to say, like, "Oh, Paul, maybe I shouldn't talk about my period around you because I don't want you to be hurt." So then they start feeling sorry for me, even though they're the ones that are going through it. And so it's allowed both parties to be sympathetic to each other and be better friends and have better understanding. This is why you can never watch horror movies. You actually feel physical pain. Um, Sometimes that happens to me too, actually, but it depends on the pain. Because I feel like when I'm playing games like Zero Escape, usually the violence is so over the top that I can't sympathize with it because I realize that it's so unlikely that these situations would ever happen. But usually, like when I feel physical pain from something, it's usually when that person is put in a scenario that would scare me for different reasons. Like, to give you an example, I was recently watching a survival show, and I saw that oh, well, I'll be vague just so that I don't gross you out, but she had blood and there were flies near the blood. And I was really grossed out by that. Normally that kind of stuff doesn't faze me, but the reason why I was grossed out with that was because I don't like being in scenarios where I can't like have access to running water. And so because I was scared of the scenario she was in, I was more empathetic to her pain because I would have been in pain just being there. And so for me, usually that's what helps me to like do fake FE for lack of a better word, is I try to think, is there anything I can do to insert myself into this scenario? And then usually those are the moments when people people will mistakenly think I'm an empath. Which, to be fair, I have had an empath say to me, "Paul, um, you have what's called cognitive empathy, which means you may not literally feel people's pain, but you understand it on like a logical or a conceptual level. And that is such an honor to me because I know that that's what Jesus tried to do. Two or three girls at the same time? What was the context here? Like, were they bullying you? Well, you don't have to answer that if it's TMI or trauma. Um, I was bullied too when I was in high school, but mine were not physical bullying, it was emotional. Well, I'm glad that you're past those days, hey girl, because you've been really great in these chats, and I really appreciate you being here. Used to be a mean girl. Well, you've come a long way, so I'm really proud of you. Trying to think. Yeah, the bullying that I experienced was more so like I didn't fit in with I didn't fit in with their perception of a cool kid. And so even though they would like treat me nice to my face, then they'd turn around and like try to turn everyone against me, and it worked, unfortunately. But you missed me saying earlier before you showed up that this month marks exactly 10 years since I got out of depression. And I'm pretty sure part of the reason why I was in depression was because of repressed trauma from those girls that were so mean to me. And the reason why I got out of depression was that I met girls at a conference I went on that did the exact opposite. They said, "You mean something to us. You have made a difference." And then they proceeded to go and kind of do the same thing, but like the nice version of it. So, like, they went to their friends and they said, "Hey, Paul said this really nice stuff to us, and we think you could learn from him." So then their friends came up to me and they said, "Hey, Paul, we saw that you talked to our friends, and we just really love what you were saying to them. And we do want you to know that you made a difference." And I still have pictures of three of those girls too, so I can still remember what they look like. But yeah, like I'll never forget what they did for me, and I'm so glad that at least for three of them, I got a chance to see them again, and I got a chance to thank them and hug them. And I just never want people to, because I know what it feels like when I lost my train of thought. I know what it feels like to go through life not ever knowing if you actually made a difference. And then people tell you years later, like, "Oh, hey, there was this time when you were like a teenager where you said something really nice to me, and that made all the difference." And I'm thinking, why didn't you tell me that when I was in depression? I would have really benefited from hearing that. So for me, I go out of my way to compliment people as much as I can because I don't want people to suffer the way that I suffered. I want to know that I want people to know that they mean something, that they've really made a difference. And that goes for you too, hey girl. Your loyalty has been an absolute blessing in my life. Like, I used to think that these live streams are so boring and people didn't like them. And um, when you started coming regularly, it got me to think that I kind of wanted to do these regularly. And then even before you would show up, like I would talk about these deep theological concepts that I was regretting that I didn't talk about enough in my major videos. So thank you, thank you, hey girl. That's funny. But I am planning on making them regular. I don't know when, but at some point they will be regular. I'm 98% certain that that's going to happen. Yeah, yeah, I know. I know. It's very hard. That being said, if you're ever like just really wanting to come onto my live streams every single time and you're tired of just waiting for me to just randomly pop on, um, you can always email me. My email's in my about section. I did fix the warning before coming into the live stream. So if it didn't work, I think YouTube just auto corrected. But I think I fixed the bit about self-promotion where it said, like, I want people to self-promote. I want them to say, "Here's my Twitter. Here's my Twitch." Like, bring it all in, because 'cause I'm not the only one here. I want you guys to feel special too. But you said depression and insomnia. I also have anxiety and insomnia. Thankfully, my insomnia has been getting quite a lot better lately. Like, I usually try to take a nap every afternoon, and I try to go to bed at the same time every night, and that's really helped quite a lot. I'm still not much of an afternoon person, but I've been getting better ever since. And usually, one thing that really helps me to like not be tired is knowing that I made a difference in people's lives. Because if there's one thing that just gets my energy going like crazy, it's knowing that there is an impact being made. So like when I have to wake up at 8 in the morning to go and teach those kids, because I'm the assistant teacher for fourth and fifth graders, that's really rough. And when I first starting it, I was like, oh man, this is just way too early for me. But every single time I thought there was even the slightest possibility that these kids would be better people as a result of what I had to say, that gave me a really, really, really big energy rush. And then as soon as I got home, I crashed. But it helped me get through the class without yawning too much. Yeah, it takes a certain gift to work with kids, and I would say probably not everyone has it. But you just find your own gift. Like I remember that there was one time when I was volunteering at my previous parish before I moved here, and the DRE really wanted me to sell wreaths. And, "Oh, hey, Jungle Runnin'. Hey, quick is better than nothing. Thanks a bunch for showing up. Anything you wanted to ask before you gotta go?" But as I was saying, yeah, so she said, "Paul, I think you just have really good people skills, and I think you'd be great at selling these wreaths." And um, I hated it. I hated it with a passion. So I told her, I just don't think I'm cut out for advertising. So then she realized, okay, well, let's look at what you do have. And that's that you seem to have a gift with teaching young people. So I'll put you in more scenarios where you're teaching young people. So I just maximized what I'm good at and what I liked. Two nephews, one of them has ADHD. Oh, I know the feeling. 2 days of sleep for babysitting. That's about how I feel when I'm done with my nieces and nephews. Dang, hey girl, you and I are way more alike than I initially realized. Obviously not identical, but like there's a lot that you're saying that I can relate to. In fact, I missed my nephew's birthday party because I just thought, oh, he's probably going to invite so many of his friends and they're probably going to be loud. And I'm going to try to see him for my birthday, though. That is one thing where I'm going to put my foot down. I am also bad at sales. Hey, girl, are you trying to be like the female equivalent of me here? Because it is hilarious how much I can relate to right now. Yeah, like I'm the type of guy that I feel like if I were working at Nintendo and I were like trying to sell Joy-Cons, I'd say, well, there's the possibility of this drifting. So really make sure you get the warranty. That's why Um, I've never taken a job in marketing or sales. Hey, you know what? That's good that you're able to sell people even with honesty. I wish there were more people like that. That would be so great. And that's why I'm never going to take sponsorships on this channel because from what I've heard, I could be wrong on this, but sponsored videos require the person sponsoring you to look over your content to make sure it's to their liking and that it puts their product in a good light. And I'm just not that kind of person. If I think a product stinks, I'm going to say it like it is. And obviously, there are sponsored videos out there where people will like list criticisms. But generally speaking, you're never going to see a sponsored video where the overall message about the product is, I don't like it. And that's where I draw the line. And so that's why I don't remember if I told you or someone else, but I actually do have a game developer that has reached out to me, and he said that once the game good for you, hey girl. I would do the exact same thing. Um, I had a game developer reach out to me, and he said he'd give me a review code. And then I told him that I have problems with Steam. So he said he'd send me a review code once the Switch version came out. And I just said, I want you to know that I don't want this video to be sponsored. And I want to be able to say my own raw, honest thoughts the same way as I would just doing any other review. And he said, I actually want to hear your honesty. And I want to hear you like give your honest thoughts. So there's an example where I turned the sponsorship stereotype on its head. Oh, by the way, hey girl, I hope you really like my new room setup. And I hope you can see the family resemblance between me and my grandpa and my grandma. That Banjo Kazooie amiibo, that was the only amiibo left over from my purge. Because I had to sell all my amiibos but one. One time was when I was in a financial crisis, and I just said I cannot part with Banjo and Kazooie. Where is my grandpa? He's in that blue picture right there, the one with the suit. Yep, right here where my thumb is. That's him on the right, and that's my grandma in the white shirt. They're both passed away now, but this picture really helps me remember how much I really loved them so much. Yeah, whenever I look at pictures of him when he was younger, his eyes kind of crinkle the same way mine do. Well, actually, I know you're probably thinking, Paul, he's bald. You're not. Actually, I have gone to the dermatologist quite a lot. I've been going since 2021, and I asked the nurse, like, do you think I'll ever go bald? And she said, I think if you keep seeing us, you'll probably keep your hair. So there you go. So I will probably end up being able to maintain being a hippie for the rest of my channel's history. But yeah, my grandpa, he was one of the biggest inspirations for me trying to get sillier on this channel. Because he was quite the jokester. He loved his figures of speech. Like we played cribbage a lot. He taught me how to play cribbage, and he would always have like a figure of speech for every single type of hand he'd get. Like if he would get a hand that had no points, he'd say, "I got nothing," or he'd say, "That's a hand like a foot." And he would always call the crib the kitty. And whenever he would get only 4 points in a hand, he'd say 15-2, 15-4, and the rest don't score. And then whenever he would get like a good hand, he'd say, well, who'd have thunk it? I do miss him quite a lot, but not as much as I used to, because I've actually had these really cool experiences where I can like sometimes when I'm at Holy Communion, I can see him like smiling down at me. When my grandma was about to die, I heard him like talking to me and telling me jokes. And then I told my mom about it, and she said, I heard the same thing. So as a Catholic, I do believe that our loved ones can reach out to us when we miss them too much. Maybe not like all the time, but it certainly feels like when I'm hearing a particularly beautiful hymn at Mass that I can almost feel like he's there with me. But yeah, he he liked to treat me to food because I think he thought I was underfed. Not much has changed, obviously. But he taught me how to play cribbage, which I'm always grateful for. He he would pay me for helping out with his yard work. He was the one that taught me the value of working smarter, not harder. Because I would always think if I work hard, that's going to make him proud. And he would say, if you work too hard, then you're going to lose energy. So you might as well work efficiently. So that was really helpful in me being able to hold down a job, which, by the way, I got my first job the same year that he passed away. So what good timing. That's a good question. I'd have to I'd have to think about what his personality type was. I know one major difference between him and me was that He tended to holler quite a lot. Like, when he was angry, he would, like, slam doors and he would yell at the top of his lungs. I'm not much of a yeller. I actually haven't shouted at someone since 2017. I'm usually a very soft-spoken, not really too much of a raising my voice kinda guy, and he was the exact opposite. And he also was in the war, so I think that made him a bit less attuned to people's emotions. But I think because I experienced him as a grandpa and not as a father like my dad did, it was able to help me to appreciate how far he had come. Because from what I can tell, he improved quite a lot after he became a grandpa. Yeah, I'm not sure what type he would be. I would estimate either an SJ or an NP though, because he did like his whimsical jokes, and you typically don't get a whole lot of whimsy from the introverted intuitives. Like, they have a sense of humor, but what I've noticed is that their idea of what's funny is what I call situational absurdity. So the introverted intuitives, those are all the SPs and NJs. They will usually make a joke about something happening in the moment that's stupid or that's silly. Like, they might say like, "Oh, look at all the pileup of cars. It's just like a sandwich." That might be their type of humor. My type of humor is more like making connections and trying to be as goofy as possible. Like banana peel on the floor jokes. I don't think I've heard that one. But typically, like the NPs and the SJs, their type of humor is more, hmm. I mean, I'm quite the jokester. I will usually make some kind of random connection to something in my past, and then I'll find it funny because it's nostalgic. Like just look at the post that I make about political correctness. I'm trying to like relate it to something from popular culture, and like my favorite food is pizza. So I called it the Fellowship of Pizza. And it's like this silly, um like the NJs and the SPs would probably say, why not just say I don't like political correctness? Because they're all about being in the moment because they have extroverted sensing. Chevy Chase Christmas movies. I haven't seen those, but considering how similar we've been so far, I'm willing to bet that I probably wouldn't like it either if you say so. You had to watch them with your parents? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, I've watched a couple of movies with my parents that I didn't end up liking. One of those movies was 2001: A Space Odyssey. Cannot stand that movie. It's like the definition of um show don't tell, and I'm not always a big fan of that cuz you see the black monolith and they never explain what it is. And usually people will say like, "Well, this is what the black monolith symbolizes." And I'll be like, "Well, how was I supposed to know that just from watching the movie?" And they're like, "Well, you have to tell from the contextual clues." And I'm like, "I didn't see any contextual clues. I just saw a bunch of monkeys that were obsessed over a black monolith." So I just think that I'm way too much of a censor to appreciate those types of movies. I do occasionally entertain symbolism if there's a practical application for it. Like like Harry Potter, for example. I forget whether I told this to you or someone else, but when I started realizing that there were Christian messages in Harry Potter, I started to look deeper into the symbolism because I realized that if I want to get closer to God, maybe this book will help me do it by some kind of creative writing. And so then I started, well, I don't want to spoil anything if you haven't read the books, but let's just say that by the time I got to Deathly Hallows, it was the first book that I read where I didn't just read it straight at face value. Because the other books, I'd just say, like, oh, that's a cool scene and leave it at that. But then I would say, like, oh, that looks like that's symbolism of the Blessed Mother. Or I'd say, like, oh, that gravestone has a Bible verse on it. And I'd be like deliberately looking out for that. And every time I reread Deathly Hallows, I learn something new and I get deeper in my faith. And there have been a couple of mission trips where I've used Harry Potter as a means of like helping people get into the faith. And they've all said, like, I have never seen Harry Potter in that way before. And that's why if anyone ever tries to tell me that Harry Potter is stupid, I will say, not to me. Harry Potter has taught me quite a lot about the faith and about love and about like people, like the value of mercy. And again, I don't want to spoil it, but by the end of the series, Harry is like the epitome of what I wish modern society would be. And if you know what I'm talking about, then I find it hard to believe that such a book is evil. Last year, you had a spiritual experience where you felt like you were inhabited by the spirit of the Blessed Mother. Interesting. Interesting. If you want to share more about that, that's intriguing. That is very intriguing. I didn't even know you were Catholic until now, hey girl. So, well, then again, you probably wouldn't have followed this channel if you weren't at least interested in Catholicism. I guess, like, I have so many atheists that come on my channel that I typically, like, will assume that everyone is an atheist unless, like, I don't know, their username says something about that. Oh, familiar with the culture. Gotcha. Okay. Well, I have been told that I'm not the best person at converting people to Catholicism. Unless you want me to try, but I can't promise I'll be very good at it. But I have been told that I'm very good at helping people understand the faith and like be stronger in it. Agnostic slash spiritual. Okay. Okay. You know what? I really respect a lot of agnostic people because God is God is the type of person that I would say you can't convert to him in a night. It really takes a long time to figure out who he is and why he's such a great person. Like, I would say if you came onto my stream and decided in just one stream that you wanted to be Catholic, I'd say, no, I don't think you're going to be a very good Catholic because you would really have to go through this rigorous process of making sure you really understand what you're getting into because this is destiny we're talking about. Like, you want to be certain of where you're going. And if there's even the slightest bit of miscommunication, that could be dangerous. But hey, you know what? There are quite a lot of people in my life that aren't Catholic, and they're some of my best friends. I don't think Esabel is Catholic, but she is like up there among like my absolute best of friends. And I'm pretty sure we agree on just about everything as far as like raw, as far as like genuine morals. I think we're in pretty much agreement. So what happened was that this Blessed Mother compelled me to look up in the sky. It was the middle of the night, couldn't sleep. You looked up, the stars disappeared, and something was looking back at me. That is beautiful. Yeah, I wouldn't blame you if that happened. Although, if you lived where I lived and that happened, I would say that's just par for the course. Because where I used to live, you could barely see the stars because it was so polluted. But if you're in a place where that normally happens, authority. Authority. Okay. I could interpret that in many ways, but I have since learned that when people have spiritual experiences, it's usually best for the person to make the judgment and for everyone else to just guess. But here's what I think. In the Catholic Church, and again, this is just what I think, I could be wrong. So just take what I say and figure it out for yourself. In the Catholic Church, we believe that Mary is always guiding people to Jesus, but never wants to outright replace him. So that's why, like, every apparition that's been approved of, Mary has never tried to draw attention to herself. She's always said, like, this is going to get you closer to Jesus. So she's always, like, pointing to him. And so I believe that if she said authority to you, she was saying, I am going to help you to realize what true authority is. That's assuming I'm correct about this. It could also be referring to the fact that maybe like you've had trouble with authority figures. And maybe she's saying like, "Hey, you know what? They're not all that bad." Generally what I've noticed when people see Satan is Satan likes to make people feel terrible about themselves. He's the type of person that makes you feel like you're this horrible rotten sinner, and he wants you to feel like you're not worthy of love, and you've done all these mistakes and you're this horrible horrible person. God, on the other hand, if you feel him, all three of your clocks, wow, that's so cool. Probably would have been a bit scary for you, but that sounds very cool. I think I've told you I've had quite the entourage of spiritual experiences myself. That's the main reason why I'm Catholic, honestly. Last summer, huh? Where was I last summer? I was hanging out with Isabel. That's where I was. Huh. Well, I'm glad you told me about that, hey girl. I'll pray about it and see if maybe I can come to a realization. That's if you want to talk about it again. If you don't want to, I can always. Do I like summer? Nope. Except for going swimming. That's the only thing I like about summer. Apart from that, I can't stand the heat. I'm a very warm blooded person. I live in the northern part of the US, so there's only 3 months of the year where it's consistently hot where I live. I mean, yes, I wear t-shirts a lot, but that's mainly because they're more comfortable. There's something about long sleeve shirts that kind of bothers me. But yeah, I've never been a summer guy. Every mission trip I've gone on, I'm just like, get me in the air conditioning as soon as possible. And yet I went on 8 of them. So I must have gotten something out of them. Oh, you live in New Jersey. Okay, okay. What's the climate like in New Jersey? Jersey Shore, very, very nice. Wildwood? What's Wildwood? But yeah, my favorite season is winter, if you can believe it. I love how crisp everything is because like the light is reflecting off of the snow and then that like makes everything clearer. And I love just the sight of untouched snow is just beautiful. A shore town. Oh, that's cool. I think I'd like a place like that. That's very, very nice. Very nice. But yeah, when I went to visit Isabel the first time, because I've seen her 3 times in person, going to see her a fourth time this April, um, I was a wimp whenever I was outside with her because the wind, not only was it hot wind, but it was no humidity, and the weather was already hot. And I just told her, like, I never want to be in that kind of situation again. If I'm going to be outside when I'm visiting you, I want to be in the air conditioning. I like beaches. I just need to wear a lot of sunscreen because I'd probably just stay in the water. As you know me, any opportunity I can get to be in the water, I'm going to take it because I used to be afraid of the water, as you know, from watching my pools video. And then I got over it. And I got over it so much that every single time I'm suggesting to my friends what we're going to do, I always say, let's go swimming. Except for Daniel and Matt. They don't like swimming that much. But every other of my friends, I'm always just like, you want to go to the beach? You want to go to the lake? Um, when I go visit Isabel, I'm going to take her to one of my favorite pools and her sister too. Don't want to be exclusive. And there was someone that put a comment on my pools video that made me think of a new type of video I might want to do. And that's that I'm pretty sure it was a girl because it had a picture of a cat. I know guys can have pictures of cats, but usually that's more of a female thing. But anyway, this person said, "Oh, Paul, I loved the skit you did at the beginning. It felt like you were vlogging through the game." And I said, "Ooh, that actually sounds like a pretty cool idea." So I was thinking, I once made a video a long time ago called Former Aquaphobic Man Gives Advice on Overcoming Aquaphobia. And it was me at the lake, like walking into the water. and like telling people step by step, like, here's what you can do if you're afraid of the water. And I'm thinking that would be really cool if like I did like a vlog in the water. Maybe not at a swimming pool because the lifeguards would probably think that that's sexual harassment. But maybe if I'm like at a public beach and like I'm making sure no one's around. Like maybe I could say in real time, like, this is what I used to look like. This is what I look like now. This is me, a former aquaphobe in the water, enjoying myself. And I'm going to encourage all of you to face your fears as well. Oh, deep water is scary to you. I think very deep water is scary, but I've always been a very good swimmer. Like, even when I was afraid of the water, I was very good at swimming. What about heights? Not afraid of heights either. I won't tell you what I am afraid of because here's the thing. Whenever I tell people what my worst fear is, they always like talk about it more. And then I end up getting creeped out anyway. So I kind of feel like people just aren't very nice whenever I tell them about my worst fear. So I'm very selective about who I tell that to. I'll say some of my worst fears. Some of them are abandonment. That's one of them. Um, I don't like door slams. That's another thing that I really am afraid of. And I know that doesn't seem like a fear, but um, as I said in my best memories video, there was a girl that door slammed me for 13 years, and that was very hard. And just the thought that that could ever happen again is terrifying. But I don't think it will, just because I've been better at setting boundaries since then. And I'm very grateful that most of my friends seem like the loyal types. Um, yeah, there's a couple more things that I'm afraid of that I'll keep to myself. But generally speaking, like anything to do with like disloyalty or people reaching their limit with me is very scary. Which was really nice. I had a phone call today with Catholic Kyle, which you may remember was the one that showed up on the last live stream and invited me to the Catholic Creator Conference. And there was another woman in the chat named Hallelujah. And I was really scared that I had offended her in that live stream because I had talked about how I get uncomfortable when I'm at weddings. And I thought that she would have said, "Oh, that's so scandalous. You're supposed to love weddings if you're a Catholic." And so I confided that to Kyle on the phone as I said, "Oh, I was really scared that maybe Haley had been scared off by that." And he said, "Oh no, Haley's not that type of person. She loves everyone." So I guess like my experiences with being door slammed has usually made me feel like I'm always the problem. And now that I'm learning more and more that other people have accountability as well, I'm getting better at realizing that there's always a second side. If it's true that you're an ISTJ like me, hey girl, which I'm pretty sure you are, they're the least likely to door slam out of all the types. Um, they are known for being some of the most loyal and some of like I've even been told that some ISTJs are so loyal that they will stay in an abusive relationship because they're afraid of breaking it off because they're like I've made a commitment and I can't just abandon this person. And the other types find it ridiculous because they're like, get out of a bad situation, will ya? And they're like, but I can't just abandon my friends. I can't abandon my loved ones. And I admit, I stayed in a bad relationship for a while. I wouldn't say it was abusive, but I had an ex that cheated on me. And I stayed with her for another 6 months before I broke up with her. He said we were over, but I'm almost pretty sure he regrets it. I am really sorry to hear that, hey girl. That is a real shame. Well, I reached out to my ex several years after the fact, and I forgave her. So who knows? Maybe you could reconcile with him. Yeah, yeah, you'd be surprised how many people have exes that cheat on them. But, we are We don't talk all the time anymore, but we're at the very least civil with each other now. So that I'm grateful for. But I think I'm gonna call it here just because my water is out and my voice is kind of getting scratchy. So I'll just say, like, was there anything else you wanted to ask or say before I wrap it up? Yeah, thank you so much for coming, hey girl. I really appreciate it. And I will try to be more regular going forward. It just all depends on who's at my house. Um, I'm thinking, I'm thinking you might want to write this down if you don't have a good memory. But I'm thinking I'm going to try live streaming at 5. I can't promise it'll be every day. Can't even promise it'll be regular. But I will try to be as close to 5, and that's 5 EST, 5 p.m. EST. That's when I'm going to try to stream going forward. So just the best thing that I can advise you is if it's 5 and you're just like, I feel in the mood for a Catholic gaming nerd stream, then just tune into my channel and see if it happens. And if it doesn't, just be like, okay, Paul's got people in the family that he's got to think about. But like you've been consistently showing up at 5 and other people have been, so that's what I'm thinking. All right. Well, thank you again, everyone. Thank you to Hey Girl, Matthew Rakowski, and Jungle Running for all of your wonderful comments and our great conversations. I hope that you all enjoy what I said before you all showed up because I was on a roll, at least I think I was. And again, you guys have really made my day the past couple of live streams. So have a great rest of your day. And until the next time, remember to keep the faith, stay epic, and God bless. Bye.